Hey, welcome to episode 4 of the Chairmen podcast. I am your co-host, Nathan Bourne, here with
Hey, I'm Ned.
Ned Eric, and we are
I've
excited.
never gotten that right once.
Your name? Oh, you mean like the kickoff? Yeah. We even had an extra bonus episode where we didn't get the recording right for you to practice. I can just say your name if you want.
I just feel like I'm so famous.
People know.
Everyone just knows.
I love it. We are excited to come to you live today to talk about scale. Scale of Julia. I think the notes are scaling is a scam.
Scaling is a scam, dude. And I think, yeah. And, I think obviously for those of you listening, don't completely turn this off. But, I think from the perspective of what scale has meant the last, honestly, decade, realistically, really up until pretty much last year when people started talking about profitable, efficient growth, which literally is just a sexy way of how businesses used to grow.
Right.
But, it's like the thought process, if we were to talk to anyone who started a business in the 60s, 70s, 80s, even 90s, if you were to talk to them and say like, hey, we're burning $1 million a month so that we can grow, I think they would look at you funny. And these are guys that, run 40, $50 million successful businesses that have been around for,
Dude, you don't even have to go far back. I was doing my core business presentation about 2 years ago. Yeah, exactly. Just like little over 2 years ago in C12. And I showed them our books and it had all of our churn. All of our burn.
All your burn, yeah.
All of our burn. And it was like very alarming to them.
Yeah.
And for good reason. And it was a mindset shift for me. Like I had been subscribing to the thinking that like NBD, like no big deal. We'll just go get capital if we need. We'll grow faster. And they had like a damn near intervention for me. And we're like, young man, you're going to have a serious problem if you don't make changes immediately.
Yeah.
And it was a checkup from the neck up. And I can remember very consciously thinking I should either go in one of two directions. I should keep doing what I'm doing and bury my head in the sand and then find a way to get an investor or to get a loan, or I should do the hard thing now and decide to make this company profitable.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that I had the right people around me, that the timing was right for me to kind of make a mature decision. And it was a hard decision.
Well, because scale is a status symbol, or it became a status symbol. Right? Because here's the thing, is like whenever anyone tells you, oh yeah, we do 10 million a year, how much of that is profit? That's the real question, because like cash is king when it comes down to it. But if you grew in 3 years, $100 million company in 2020, in 2019, 2020, you were getting $1 billion valuation. And dude, I was with a company that literally, I say burning $1 million a month. We were burning $1 million a month. We went to market. We went to go sell. And the company that was going to come acquire us told us basically, yo, you got to fire 75% of your staff, because what's the quickest way to eliminate burn is eliminate payroll, right off the bat. And that was in like the meat of the VC era of hyper growth and scale. And I think that because it became a status symbol, it was this just like, oh yeah, I work for this hyper growth company. I remember like actually saying that to people and being like, yeah, I'm cool. When in reality, hyper growth meant like negative profit.
Right. That would be like, if you were keeping it real, you'd be like, oh yeah, I work for this fiscally irresponsible, emotionally abusive company. It's really sweet. It's downtown San Fran.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, man. And making a decision, like I would just encourage people in this moment, and we're not Dave Ramsey over here. We're not saying like you can't spend any money and be so conservative, but like take inventory of your psyche, like how you feel, like how does it make you feel? And sure, it might be cool to be able to tout certain metrics. But in that moment, I had heard it before, but it just hit me so hard when I was reminded that revenue is vanity,
Yeah.
profit is sanity,
Yeah.
and cash is king.
The only thing you should be scaling is your cash.
Right.
Right. Like, and if you don't have enough cash to scale properly, profitably, and efficiently, and what that means is profit is at the end of the day, how much you should be in the black. Like, even if you're in the black $10 at the end of the month, congratulations. But profitable but efficient means that you can actually fulfill based on the headcount that you have, based on the systems and the process and the structure that you have in place, you can go and grow more and still be profitable. Or if you have to get into the red for a month or a quarter because you have to hire that really high impact person that you're bringing in, or potentially bring on a high impact tool, there has to be a true return on investment where you can go back into the black.
Right.
Otherwise, like, that's where you start to like have these tech stacks that aren't actually being used. You're hiring 20 salespeople when they're not, there's no marketing to actually help them. There's no air coverage, things like that. And the problem is that if you start a business and the first thing that you do is think about what our tech stack should be, that's probably the wrong thinking right off the bat, just in my opinion, personally.
I agree. I would say too, like, check in on your ego, like check in and check it, like really try to have an honest conversation with yourself and ask yourself, if I were to take on that much capital and deploy it, would I be doing it for the right reasons? And then a lot of the times,
are you deploying it in the right places too?
well, there seems to be this like delaying or even avoidance of the inevitable, which inevitably you do have to be profitable unless your whole play is to get out before the sky falls. Like, just basic math will tell you at some point this thing has to make money.
Yeah.
And there's not really saviors anymore. Like the heyday came and went, like that sunsetted. So the big behemoths that had all the money that could just gobble up your solution and tack it on to theirs, or buy your client base, or buy your code, or buy whatever was proprietary to you, like that just like that happened. Like you said, it's probably the last decade. So now the companies that are being prudent and starting with the end in mind and thinking in terms of like, how do I create a safe space, not in like a woke kind of way, but just in like a, hey, is this a place that will sustain? Yeah, just like, is this going to sustain? Is this something that is going to be around long enough to mature and to develop? And there's just decisions that you can make. And I would just encourage anyone listening, like, if you're just getting started, you can make that decision now, and I would encourage it. If I go back in like my mind and think back to the last 7 years of my core, like anyone, there's all kinds of mistakes that I made and things I would do differently. Overall, no regrets, not even a single letter. Yeah. But I would definitely do things differently.
Yeah.
And you can still do them.
But the thing is, dude, is that's what the playbook was. There was this VC playbook that was being touted. It was hire 20 SDRs, go out and get a bunch of clients, especially like, and honestly, it was, who cares at what price, just get logos. I genuinely remember early on in my career that it was like, one of the clients we had was Planet Fitness, and they were paying us like $2.50 per location, right? And our average contract value was in the 400s, right, a month. And it's like, sure, when you kind of look at it, it's like, oh, they're opening up, at that time, they're opening up like 1,500 new locations a day or a week or whatever it was. It was something wild. But it's like, you still do the math on that, and it's like, dude, I mean, make those guys pay $50, like whatever it was. It was just like, could we put that logo on the website? And realistically, our thought process going into it was, there's going to be a company that wants to get into this market because we were early to the market,
Right.
and they're going to buy us for our client base. And it's interesting because when we got acquired, they bought us, they got rid of it completely, and then they just bought us for our client base. Like, that's literally what they did. And that just doesn't happen anymore.
I mean, I don't think people are talking about this enough, but I feel like this is the equivalent of the housing crisis from 2008. You know, if you've seen The Big Short, like, it gives that really great narrative of the underbelly of the crash. And there's just an immense amount of greed and stupidity that was ridden in that era, you know, where people were selling these subprime loans and kind of like truly like they were predatory lenders. And I just don't know that VC's like that different from that, right? I mean, you're kind of tapping into a person's like dreams to build a business, to create a place of work, to create a brand, to create like an epic American story.
Yeah.
And I think people take the bait, you know.
Well, and then they get told, hey, you have to triple, double, and then we'll sell. I mean, that's literally saying like, hey, like you have to go from 0 or wherever they were bought, 1 million to 3 million to 9 million, right? And then it's to 18 million and then to 36. Like, it's like you're actually going, and it's like, how do we go do that in 12 months? Well, in that playbook, it's headcount. Go hire more people, go buy more technology that makes it more simpler for them to go do it. And the problem is like, the biggest issue with platforms and technology is unless you have the systems, process, structure in place, they actually don't get used, and they don't get used to their fullest potential. And the problem is in most cases in startup world, right? Like if I just like am brutally honest, it's like most founders don't take the time to build a company that actually can sustain hiring on people.
Right.
That right there is like, I'm just going to say that again. I'm going to wave a hanky. Most founders don't take the time to build a company that can sustain more people. And that meaning from the systems, they haven't done the outreach. They haven't sold enough of their product, right? I've had founders come to me and be like, oh, I need to hire an SDR. And I'm like, cool, why?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, because we need more like deals. I'm like, okay, cool, why? Right. And it's just like when you go 7 whys deep, they haven't even done the work and set the process. And like a lot of times they expect this sales development rep or this first account executive to go out and build those things. But the thing is, the builder that you want, you can't afford right now.
Right.
And so I think a lot of these companies get stuck in this like scale cycle loop of I've got to grow faster, so I better hire more people. But the people that you're going to hire aren't actually builders because you can't afford the builders. And then you haven't even created a foundation as an organization for those people to be able to build on top of. So you're literally building on a swamp. It's like Florida. Like
Right.
We're building on a swamp and we're going to be in the
it's
ocean.
not on solid ground. You said something there. I'd love to get your take on this. What are your thoughts on founder-led sales?
I think it's a phenomenal idea. I think you have to.
Yeah.
I don't even think that it's a phenomenal idea. I think it is a necessity. I mean, how many profit share clients did you sell before it was even like, oh, let's get people out there? I mean, you brought on 50 plus clients having conversations.
I think I might, it's probably close, but I might still be
top sales guy.
Yeah, like from an active client base, not like any time recently.
Dude, because that's crucial, right? Because not only did you sell them, but they saw the value consistently or seeing the value. That's a huge piece. It's like I can bring on, especially in these recurring revenue model businesses, is I can bring on a customer, and if I oversell and we underdeliver, where our churn is
The irony too, by the way, is that when you go through the life cycle of a founder, you end up like you start in sales and you end in sales.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm back to sales. It's just a new form of it. It's content creation, it's partnerships,
Yeah.
it's brand
And before
alliances.
you, and
It's
here's the
still
thing,
sales though.
because you're now starting the content and you're having those conversations with partners, it's going to take you going out there and doing the work and building the playbook to then hand off. Right. And if you don't take the time to do that as the founder, you are setting yourself and your company up for massive, massive failure. Because I've been the first sales hire. I've been the first sales leader hire.
Right.
And, everyone's kind of heard my story, but it's like, if I didn't have the people around me that I could literally go, hey, give me that PDF, bro, because I have no idea what I'm doing, I would have failed miserably.
There's a bit of a, I don't know, like a unwritten law in there too. Like something happens in your organization when you lead by example.
Yeah,
It like
no,
releases
100%.
this energy, this integrity where people feel, they can hear it in your voice. There's nuance to the way that you speak to the company, to the brand, to the culture. Like even if you're doing like very founder or executive things, to stay relevant to the sales force, to the people that are on the front lines and in the trenches. And it could be operationally or on the service side, the fulfillment side. That there's just like they just know if you're sharp or not. They know if you have been there, done that,
Yeah.
paid your dues,
And are doing it. Because like I think this is something to be said to any leaders that are listening, is like if you're a sales leader and you are not consistently either listening to calls in the bullpen, which is digital these days most of the time, and you're not actively hearing what customers and prospective customers are saying, you lose. Like you will lose. And it's just like, so from a founder perspective, it's the exact same thing. And what you're saying, I think is so crucial is, hey, when you can speak to what's happening in the market today, it doesn't matter what someone can, like a VP can come up to you and be like, hey, our guys can't sell this shit. We're overpriced. We're under product. Like our shit sucks. And you can go, hold up, pick up the phone, have a conversation, sell a deal at the price with the product. If you can do that, you win.
Yeah.
But most founders don't take the time to do that because they think I've got to scale quick because I've got money.
Yeah. Yeah. So just beware. Like if you're either in the early stage where you're like angel seed capital and you're thinking about going to like do a serious raise, I would back down significantly what you think you need.
Yeah.
The inevitability that I was starting to kind of allude to was that you do eventually have to get the team productive, selling, producing. You might as well just do that. like just start doing that so that you're not expecting the capital to do it. Like people are the ones that are going to do it. And if you're not creative enough, you don't have enough ingenuity, you don't have enough grit, you're not scrappy enough to find ways to get your product to the market besides just going, well, if I had the money, I could hire 3 more people but just make it happen.
You just have to roll
like
up your sleeve.
You just have to do it. Like just do the deal. And obviously you don't want to be a chicken with your head cut off, but you do need to like get the company there. And I think that investors, leaders, just people that like think at a higher level that really could be catalysts and accelerants to your business know if you've done the deal and are doing the deal. I mean, we don't have to look far. Like our story's still pretty fresh, right? So if my core were just an idea or a concept, or it was something that had been like stagnant or crusty, it wouldn't have attracted you. I think you knew like in your sixth sense that, okay, here's a person, me in this case, that's like doing the deal, that like has gotten the company to this stage without me, you in that case, without, and as I kind of look back to like some of those early conversations that we had, and I think there was a little bit of a intrigue because I'm like, yeah, no, we bootstrapped it, or we didn't do this, or we didn't, and it was like, damn, like you guys got to this point, like just straight up,
Yeah.
in the middle of a global pandemic too,
Yeah.
mind you. And I'm not saying that to like pound our chest or pat myself on the back, but to just say like, people do respect the hustle. Like if you're not putting the hustle in, then you're not going to attract top tier energy.
And dude, I'll tell you this is when Beam was acquired, I remember I got really close with still really close with one of our investors. And one thing he said to me, he and I were having lunch, and I just kind of was like, yo, give me the like not investor reason you bought us. Cause like when you ask them, they're like, oh, your systems are great. And you had a repeatable process. And you're like, okay, cool. Got it. But like he literally goes, you and Alex were hustlers. You were young hustlers that we knew that no matter come hell or high water, you guys would go and do the damn thing. Yeah. And it's like, people do see that, man. They see that like, and they didn't watch me do this, but there were days where I would be in the middle of working on a spreadsheet, figuring things out, and I'd get a call from a sales rep 30 minutes down the road. The lender portal wasn't working. It worked on my computer. I hopped in my truck. I drove 30 minutes. We closed the deal, right? It's just like, and I've told you this, it's like we sold by ourselves for the first $1 million of revenue. Right. And so there's a lot to be said around actually going out and doing the work. And I think that's where, I kind of think that scale as it has been preached over the years is a scam, because what it makes it sound like is if you take this money, you will grow. Right. And in most cases, that's actually the opposite of what happens. And that's why you have a lot of people that get acquired for an undisclosed amount. And when you see that, you will actually should know that an undisclosed amount means that it was a fire sale and no one made money. Right. It was right. And so one thing you did say that I want to double down on, talked about ego earlier and like growing. You have to kind of check yourself. Are we growing for ego? And we talked about this last week, but I think probably, are you growing for legacy is probably like the second part of that. Right. But just curious from your perspective with MyCore, like where did you fall into ego? And was it the C12 conversation that kind of got you out of that, or had you caught yourself prior to that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think it's important to recognize the fluidity of this. It's not hardwired. Like it has to be worked on regularly. So you can set out with good intention and even like stay the course and then lose your way a bit and get into the rumble strips and then go like, oh, wait, am I going to be humble enough to course correct and get back on track? So starting out, when I had originally established the company, founded the company, I didn't think in terms ever of exiting or scaling at some crazy rate. I was always thinking of it as creating this really amazing place for people to work and be. And then even more, and I think this is a little bit of a cheat code too, like if you approach your business as a really significant part of your life, which I don't know that you can build anything meaningful unless you do. Yeah, like I've never seen, I mean, maybe you're just like pure talent. Yeah, like come on. Then you have to like assess the experience that you're having. So I think a lot of times founders get this like God complex where they think like, oh, I have to provide this for my employees or for the marketplace. And I try to include myself in like the audience, in the participant, so that I'm going, well, do I like working here? Do I like my daily experience? Like what's my day like? So that kind of keeps like a dosage of humility as well as empathy, because then I'm thinking like,
and are you talking about the employee or the customer? Because I think like, and I don't want to stop your train of thought, but I'm just like interested in this is like, because I've always been a huge advocate of like, if you want to know what to build, you better go talk to the people you think are your ideal or your target market, ideal customer profile, whatever it is, and then be building alongside those. Like at every company I've been with outside of Beam and Addicts, because it was direct to consumer, but I always had an employee or not an employee, a like customer advocacy program where they were like building.
Yeah. I think there's an important sequence here. So interestingly enough, I don't even know if you and I have discussed this, but the original mission of MyCore, like I have it
was to be
literally
the least people centered.
right. We had a total turnaround. It was actually the mission was to be the world's most employee centric company. So fun fact, yeah, that was our original mission. I have it
Well,
like
you were my core benefits at that time too.
no, this was MyCore Inc.
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
this.
okay.
In fact, it was in the reading of Measure What Matters that inspired me so much to have a North Star. We would have these like mantras and like things we would say that were kind of like akin to it, but it wasn't until I read Measure What Matters that I realized like, wait, we need to have like a clearly defined, like distinguished, like repeatable, like resounding mission.
Yeah.
And I went like deep psychologically, like to go like, what is this going to be? And I came out of that season, or I don't know, it was like over several weeks. I was like playing with words and studying things up. And this is before like chat GPT. So it's like me and the, just
flex on us. Why don't you?
Yeah, let's go. And I was inspired by Amazon's mission, which Amazon's mission is to be the world's most customer centric company. And I thought that seems like kind of a flawed mission, because if the customer's always right, then is that at the cost of the employee? And many would say it is, particularly for Amazon. So the kind of like edgy, contrarian way to declare that was to say, okay, we're going to be employee centric. We're going to be this group of people that like are building our own world, and then we're cascading it out. And that actually served us for like 3 years. It wasn't until...
What does that mean? Like, what did that mean to you at that time?
Yeah. Yeah. It really meant building the best place for people to work. It's actually kind of our first episode, that cult-like culture.
Okay, cool.
You know, that we had this sort of attitude, for better or for worse, that was like, I can always find another customer. I can't find another Kenya. I can't find another Tony. Like, you could search your whole life and not have a Laura.
Yeah.
But I can get another roofing company.
6 million roofing company. Yeah.
So what ended up happening as MyCore evolved into like a lot more than it was and now is, between just like all the people, you know, I mean, people that listen to this podcast, I sort of view as like part of our world, you know, like they've taken,
we love you.
we love you. They've taken time, and energy, which is, you know, just as valuable, more valuable than money. Yeah. They might not be paying for it because it's like free on Spotify and social media and Apple, but I value their time. So if they're taking the time to listen in and to support it and to comment and whatever, well, that's a person. And I want to build a brand that addresses that person. So it just sort of became appropriate in the evolution of our world to be people centric and not just employee centric. But what it did do is it kind of like hunkered us down for a bit and made us make our world awesome, that people wanted to come in. I don't know that it had to be that way, but that was our journey. Like that was our arc, is that it was like, hey, this is our world and we're creating a space for the dopest people to come, and the customer will be fine because these are great people. Why wouldn't a great person deliver a great solution?
It's an interesting delineation from the norm, right? Because I think most people would go product, customer, employee.
Yep.
We're going to build the best product to solve the problem for the customers in our target market, and then we're going to find the people. Whereas you went employee, product, customer, maybe, I don't even know if you ever went product.
No.
I don't even know if
I think we're doing that now.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I think it's super interesting because, like, I'm curious from your perspective, like having brought on as many customers
Right.
as you have, I've never heard you in a conversation with someone who could purchase our product, partner with MyCore, whether that be
Or you've never
profit
seen me
sharing
do
mortgage.
that, right?
I've seen you have the conversation, but I've never seen you actually like get into the meat and potatoes of the what. But for some reason, you have hundreds of
Right.
clients.
So we're doing something right? I mean,
Yeah.
the thesis kind of proves out, which is if you can address people, and let's just update it. Let's speak to it now.
Yeah.
To be the world's most people-centric company. I'm of the belief that every company should adopt that mission.
Yeah.
Like I want that to become
Lead with who, right?
right.
Yeah.
Like I want that to become something that whether it's like officially their mission like it is ours, that they align with it so well, identify with it so well and go like, you know, WWMD, what would my core do? You know, like, oh yeah, my core would do it this way. I mean, I've always said that I want our shield to be this like gold standard, this like seal of approval that people just constantly try to get on our level, right? And that's not an arrogant statement as much as a declaration of like excellence and what
Yeah.
it really takes to be great. And you know, we had a conversation recently around scale, and I think I want to introduce that thought now around like what I think scale actually is or
Yeah.
a way to approach it.
And how I disagree vehemently.
Yeah. But I think when we had that conversation, there was a little bit of a aha for you too to go like, oh, that's pretty cool. I haven't quite thought about that way.
Yeah.
And I think that could serve businesses today because scale has always had this connotation, even expectation, that it means growth as in expansion. You know, like, oh, I scaled the company from 10 to 100, or I scaled it from X to Y. And that's fine. That's scale. I think that's half of what scale is. So I started my first company at age 18, half my life ago. I'm 36. My freshman year of college, actually the summer going into my freshman year of college, had this cool idea for a clothing company. And I didn't know anything about art. I still can't draw a circle. And my best friend, Ryan Shank, and I, we're still tight, but at the time we're ride or die. We start this company. And it took off like way more than we ever expected. And this is pre social media.
Yeah,
I mean, we sold thousands and thousands of pieces of clothing. We had like a whole team. It was very cool. But one of the things we had to learn in that process was to work with artists, and we had to create these point of sales, and we created these big banners. And then, you know, we would take a drawing that was like this big on a piece of paper and it would be on the back of a jacket or, you know, a hoodie. And I learned something called a vector file. I don't know if these still exist. It's probably some other file now, but I still don't really know. And essentially what it meant was that in order for the image to scale, it had to possess all of its parts.
Yeah.
So it needed to have the
That was,
DPI.
by the way, first time I heard this, mind blowing.
Right on, man. And that has stuck with me. Like that was one of those moments in my journey where I went, oh, that's interesting, because it has to have all of its pieces, all of its parts, what they would call DPI or dots per inch, at any size. So if I wanted it to be a sticker that was something you could put on your phone or your surfboard, or it was going to be a billboard on the side of the road, it had to have all of its components, all of its elements. And I think that's what scale is. I don't think scale is just going from small to big. It's going from small to big back to small. And you're like, what do you mean back to small? Doesn't that mean that something went bad and now you have to scale it back? Not necessarily, because what I have found in growing businesses is that you're not going to have all the answers.
Yeah.
You do not have a crystal ball. You are not a genius. You have a knack for something. That knack can develop into a forte. You definitely will need to be obsessed with it. So there'll have to be this like ridiculous obsession with it that people will think you're nuts for it. And you'll be course correcting like a torpedo all the way to its target, just gathering data, saying, actually, what if we tweaked it this way? What if we did it that way? It's never a finished product. It's constantly being refined. But at some stages, you're going to have to take a block of your business, a portion of your business, and you may need to scale it back down, because in order to go from here to here, you can't take it all with you per se, because it's like, well, it's doing its thing. Like, we have that much resources, assigned to it. We have that many people assigned to it, and we can't just bust up that whole thing and kill it. Yeah. We'll go out of business, right? Especially if we're talking about being efficient and having profitable, prudent growth. So just a shift that can occur, and this is something that like changed the way I thought, or has served me. I guess I've kind of thought it the whole time, frankly. Is, does this company exist in all of its glory at any size? And if things start to compromise, like, oh, we would lose that, well, don't do it then. It's not worth growing it, because that's a really important ingredient to the recipe that I don't think is the proper trade-off. So it's a little bit difficult to like talk about this in generalities.
Yeah. I mean, are you talking, when you say has all its parts, are you personally, Nathan Bourne, talking about people? Are you talking about process, product?
Right. Yeah. All of the above.
All of the above. Yeah.
But so let me put it differently. And I really think this might resonate. There's this moment where you're like, this is it. Yeah. Where you feel like you have the tiger by the tail, and you're like, this is it. Like, look at the recipe. It has this, it has that, it has that. If you can't grow it with all of those things that are special to it, now there's going to be like, if there's 10 things in it, there might only be like a couple that are like truly special. I'll be specific. Our special sauce is a single point of contact. Yeah. That is what has made our way. That actually answers your question from earlier. Okay. How do you have hundreds of clients? Because we provide a single point of contact, people advisor, marketing advisor. That's revolutionary. Wait. I don't have to pay, because even so, back to the scale being a scam or just the danger of it. Yeah. If you start out thinking, oh, well, we must have 100,000 clients. Well, then, you're not going to assign a single point of contact. I mean, that would be insane. You would never be able to charge the fees that you are, the prices that you are. So that is an ingredient. That's a portion of the recipe that I refuse to compromise on, because it's like the magic. It's like, that's the thing that separates us from anyone else, any other solution. So
then CMO in your business for a fraction of the cost, you get a CHRO in your business for a fraction of the cost. Like no one else is offering.
So then you find ways to scale that.
And scaling people is difficult.
It's very difficult. And it's a challenge and a journey worth going on. And one of the ways to physically do that is to find the levers that are still valuable and package them differently. Like, you can always, so like, what we're doing right now, right? So we're saying, okay, what does the package look like with a dedicated people advisor? What does the package look like with a dedicated senior people advisor? What does the package look like with a dedicated chief people officer, or as you put it, like a CHRO? Well, it is not going to be the same. Like it might be that one CPO can only handle 10 clients really, really well. Yeah. Then you're like, oh, well, that's not scalable. Sure it is, but you're going to have to 10x the price. Oh, but then no, like, don't lose that piece. Like, don't lose that part. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I think
it's really hard. I think
this is resonating with me for sure.
Because people compromise on the thing that got them to that point.
That's, I think, the thing that is a takeaway here is like, what is your special sauce, right? And like, as a business, what do you have that differentiates yourself? Like, closed loop. Hillman, Sori, and Corey created this winning zone, battlefield, losing zone piece. And I think I've talked to you about this, but it's like the battlefield is like table stakes, right? You look at a HR consultant or a marketing agency, right?
Right.
They all have, the HR consultant's going to offer like the payroll and the compliance and the employee handbook and all of these things. And they probably have it templated and it's PDF and it's really nice. And they're there when you call, like all that stuff. Cool. Right. But they also probably have a team that is going to do the handbook, then a team that presses the button on payroll and things of that nature. Right. Same with the marketing agency. Like I've worked with probably 15 or 20 at this point in my career, and they're all kind of scattered, right? You get sold by someone and then you meet your account manager, but that account manager only handles like 20% of this, and then they outsource that, and then they outsource this, that, and the other, right? And so I think like the biggest thing that I'm gathering from how you have developed my core, and tell me if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
is that you almost said, this is our special sauce. Like it is this single point of contact because you had been in that industry. You had been working with small business, and, my core is made for Main Street, and you had been doing that, and you had seen what it looked like with fragmented systems and fragmented agencies and softwares and platforms, and how it actually hurt the business as opposed to help the business. And you said, hey, the secret sauce is this single point of contact that can do all of these things. And, or like we talked about last week, kind of like there is that like ice cream analogy that you used, right? How do you get that third scoop and that fourth scoop and things like that? But it almost comes like nothing is new under the sun, right? But you have to find that thing that makes you.
By the way, it doesn't even have to be like relevant. So if you go to the DoubleTree, I think it is, or the Embassy
And
Suites,
they got that chocolate chip.
they give you a chocolate chip cookie, right?
They suck.
Right. Like it doesn't matter though, because on their billboard, it's a big cookie.
Yeah, it says get yourself
a warm cookie or something, right? So like this is, let me zoom out even a little further, and I think I can try to make sense of this. So we live in a chaotic world, and people want an equal amount of predictability and unpredictability, oddly enough, right? If your solution is so predictable, you will lose the opportunity to connect with a person on a problem that was unpredictable that you solved together. And people don't retain their talent because they're not creating enough problems for them.
Interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
So they think like, oh, I have to make it convenient for this person, easy for this person. No, you have to choose where the hurdles are, and then make sure that when they're trying to climb that rope or go over that obstacle, if you think of like a Spartan race, there's somebody with them in that moment. And if that person with them is not from your company, then the bond won't be built between them and you. And it's in that bond that both parties build loyalty to each other, because the fourth wall of you're a company and I'm a company turns into you're a person and I'm a person.
Yeah.
And now we're in this together. This is why we've been able to retain so many of our clients, because even people on our side that have probably thought, do I really want to work at MyCore anymore? And they go, well, these 100 clients depend on me. These 50 clients depend on me. All of this. So you're constantly humanizing it and showing them how it actually impacts people's lives.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, they will find another like source of energy to go a little bit further, And it's not some like manipulative thing. It's all very transparent. It's all very like open, but it's really, really important. And this is what being people-centric means, is it's like find the people in all of it. Find the person, the humanity, the like who factor.
It's the jobs to be done framework, right? It's they didn't, long story short, right? They didn't buy the milkshakes from McDonald's at 8:00 in the morning because they wanted ice cream and milk and sugar and all of that. They bought the milkshake at 8 a.m. in the morning because it kept them full through lunch, right? The bagel with cream cheese was too hard to eat while they're on the road. The, Egg McMuffin didn't keep them full, or it was too hard, too messy on the road. And then the milkshake is right here. I'm drinking it. It's that job's to be done. And like, I remember early on in my career, as I was kind of leading marketing teams, we used to call it like the aha moment, right? And what's interesting is I've never thought of the aha moment from an employee standpoint. I've always thought of it as, okay, what's the quarter-inch hole, right? And then you want to get those individuals to that quarter-inch hole as quickly as possible, because and what's interesting is in how you're actually putting this right now is that quarter-inch hole, there's a human behind the drill that's actually able to now hang the picture and look at their Picasso art and be like, wow, look at that amazing thing that I'm able to do now that I bought this thing, right? But what's interesting about what you're talking about, and how I think it's very interesting when you talk about scale and you bring it even internal, what is the aha moment for your employee, right? What is that moment of like, shit, I think we were talking about it maybe at the coffee shop, but I think you said to Kenya, it's like, it's like hey babe, I made the best decision coming to this company. And then like, how do you get to the next aha? Because like, what's interesting when you talk about that aha moment in marketing is, and like in product marketing specifically, is that's the first moment. And then there's more depth, right? And I think the companies that have become so sticky and scalable in a way that is profitable, efficient, and they're actually going out and doing things, is they built depth first before width. Like think about HubSpot, for instance. HubSpot started out as an inbound marketing platform. They were not a full CRM. They had marketing. Then they brought on sales. Then they brought on customer success and like the operation side of things. But they went so deep on inbound that their conference that brings thousands of people every year is called Inbound, right? And it's why Nathan Bourne is going to be people ops. But
okay, so let's speak to that a little bit, right? And I'd rather just talk about my core because it's like proof positive. So we're putting on this event, the Core Collective. And it's not like random words. Like what we're saying directly, indirectly, subliminally is you have to be building a core collective. Like we now live in the economy of shared resources, collaborating, cooperative.
We are in a co-working space.
We're literally in a co-working space. And here's the thing. These are like real decisions. So when we said, okay, we're going to be providing a single point of contact in what appears as a tech solution or a platform, what we call service as a software, I had to make decisions early on to afford that. Like not go get a swanky office, even though at the time...
It's pretty swanky, dude.
That's right. And I get both. At the time, pre-COVID, this was 2018, it was like weird in the industry that we were in to not have a physical office, right? And this was before we even had a co-working space. I'm working from Panera and Starbucks and local coffee shops. So here I am providing a professional service to the market in 2018, 2019 with no physical space. And people aren't working remotely yet. That's now so normal because we're 5 years, hence from COVID. So those are where like a dominant thought, a dominant belief, like a constant, in the equation will determine all the other thoughts. If all you have is a hammer, all you'll find is nails. So choose wisely what you're hammering into your head and what you're hammering into the people's heads around you. So the scale piece is that maybe it doesn't possess all of its parts because you find that, okay, these three things we can do without. But there's going to have to be like secret sauce, special, unique value proposition, like the good stuff, like you talked about with Beam. And I bet every listener, whether they're at a company or they own a company or they're starting a company, if you can't tell me what the secret sauce of your company is,
what makes you different? Yeah.
Like what true, and it'd be like, and you believe that your owners are non-negotiable on that. Like they would bite your ankles if you tried to like change it.
Yeah.
Then I think you are weak, like
Yeah.
weak sauce.
Yeah.
And in this market, in this world, there's just not a lot of room for error. There's not a lot of like blind squirrels finding acorns. Like people are smart and they're going to sniff you out really quickly.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
at Beam, like I can tell you right now, our secret sauce was, and this is why we were able to become the fastest growing HVAC company in North Carolina in under 9 months. And it was, we were an HVAC company that bundled with a solar project. And our pitch was, number one, HVACs are energy efficient, the new ones. But our other pitch was eliminate a majority, if not all, of your electric bill, right, by going solar. So not only are you getting a brand new HVAC, which on average decreases your utility bill by about 30%, depending on the age, you're also going to now lock in that utility bill with solar, and there's also a payoff date. And our other secret sauce, we had two secret sauces. We had that sweet and sour, baby. Like,
Nice.
and
Chick-fil-A
but
sauce.
our other was, we are going out and recruiting door-to-door sales guys, and we were typically recruiting guys that had been 2, 3, 4, 5 summers door to door, and were tired of just being out in the heat all the time. We were leads based 100%.
Okay.
So it was like, hey, you're never going to have to go knock a door unless you're walking up to an appointment.
Now here's a question. So relative to those secret sauces, you didn't like, nobody put a gun to your head to do that, right? Is it true? And I know very little about that industry, that you could have chosen to provide cheaper HVAC systems
We
that
were
were
more
less
expensive than anyone.
right.
Yeah. Exactly.
So whether you were like hyper aware of it or you just sort of kind of like it happened and then you latched onto it, I think one of the mistakes founders make is they don't get like crystal clear and vigilant about the things that make them uniquely them. And
it's interesting. Yeah.
like that's me, like that's my job. Like I protect the house and I'm like, wait, what? No, absolutely freaking not. But hey, we could have 1,000 to 1. No. Like
Yeah.
I would rather have 10 people advisors at 100 to 1, because do you know how solid these 1,000 clients are when they have a personal relationship with their Sherpa, with their guide, because they summited together, they came back down the mountain together, they talked about life. That is way more valuable than quickly getting to 1,000.
Yeah.
Because we do all the tactics that people do in the tech world. So efficient, profitable, efficient growth. That's always how we've operated.
Yeah.
We didn't surge up. We were losing money because I just wasn't paying attention, honestly. It was really just like negligence or recklessness. And fortunately, I course corrected it, right-sized the company, sobered up, and was like,
Some people wouldn't even do that.
it was humbling. I had to fire 3 people on one day, and that was relative. At the time, there were like 15 people in total. So it was like a third or 20% of the team was going, and I had to take it to the chin and be like, we screwed up.
Yeah. But I think like what you've done that I've seen is going back to the depth versus width. And what you're saying about, it could be 1,000 to 1, is you've gone deep, right? And you've gone deep not only with the people, but you've gone deep with the product and the offer. And it's like, this is what we do. And now you are able to step into rooms with the confidence that, or even step out of rooms with the confidence that, I think we talked about this on another podcast, or another
all starting to
episode,
blend
but
together.
like, I think all of our conversations have been podcast.
We do talk outside of this.
Yeah, we do actually. But it's like the root system of a redwood tree is deep, and it's also pretty wide too.
Yeah.
Right. But it started by going deep. And I think what happens too often, and I've said this before, is like your first 10 customers are your most important customers, because if you can go deep with them and be building with your secret sauce or your unique differentiator, it allows you then, once you've gotten deep, to go get another 10 and another 10 and another 10 and not lose your root system.
Yep.
Because what happens when trees die, right? They die from the roots up, right? And so it's like, man, I think one of the biggest things that you can do as an organization if you want to scale is, man, like pick that thing and be so adamant that that is the thing that makes us different. And to go back to that like Venn diagram that Closed Loop built of like the battlefield, which is table stakes, you also have what's called the losing zone. And the losing zone is just a place where you're just not willing to go. You're just like, hey, we're not that.
Yep.
That's not what we are. And we talked about this on the law of repulsion, right? It's like when you are actually just speaking with, these are the pains that we solve, this is the solution that solves it. There's like, you're going to obviously get people that are like, well, could you do it this way or that way? And I think where most companies go wrong, and this is where your net retention really starts to screw up, is when that salesperson goes, yeah, that's on the product roadmap. No, it's not. Like, you know, or yeah, it is, but it's like 3 years down the road. We've talked about it in one meeting, but you just sold a client on the promise of that thing being there when it's not really the thing that you do.
Yep.
And you start to get away from that core. And when you get away from the core as an organization, it is so detrimental to your growth. And from that perspective, I think what we've seen, and this is what happens when you do say, oh, that $10 million is going to help us grow. That $10 million is the same $10 million that company over there got.
Right.
It's not the money that helps you grow. It's the core of your belief. It's the core of your business. It's the core of the thing that you provide. And it could be a person, it could be part of your product, it could be one aha moment. But if you can stick to that core, that's where, and not deviate from it when there's a shiny object over there and there's a LinkedIn post telling you that this thing worked over here, but you understand at your core that the core of your business is the thing that differentiates you. That's where people start to be drawn to your organization. And, you know, there's plenty of other HR advisory firms out there, right? There aren't very many people operations advisory firms.
What's up?
So we'll talk about that. But that being said, is like people are drawn to profit share because of the core of the business being, we actually give a shit about you, and you have one person, one contact to talk to, and it's completely different than anything else that you've ever experienced.
Yeah, man. And there's so much good stuff here. Like I feel like almost every few sentences, I'm like, that's another episode, which is good because we'll just keep
doing it.
Episodes. But, you know, kind of piggybacking off each other. But something I want to touch on relative to this scale component that you kind of triggered a thought on. Every business is a people business.
Yeah.
And I will never be convinced otherwise.
And
this
3
is
months
not
ago, I wouldn't have believed you.
But I feel like you've sort of like unbecome some of that thinking, and you know, it makes sense with your background, like the ride you were on, the track you were on. And I think a lot of times when people start to humanize this, they think like, oh, that's so cute. You're talking like mom and pops, or you're talking like, no, because like the companies that we interface with that are multi-billion-dollar tech companies that have literally like, I don't even mention names now without them paying us, so I'm not going to say it. But I'm trying to think like, who's paid us to mention? I'm joking.
Hey, Kenya, who's paid us?
But like Gusto, for example, right? Like we've been the top partner of theirs for whatever 5-7 years, and they have raised over $500 million in venture capital. They're still a people company. In fact, the reason why we have this opportunity to crush it with people ops and to build this people ops certification and just like infiltrate and dominate in like a nice way, like a weird way. It's like, there's no like whips and chains. Chill, Rihanna. The accounting community and really collaborate and integrate with is because they had two very strong personalities, very strong who's, very strong people who are no longer at their company.
Yeah.
And that to me is like a wide open opportunity. So here's the danger. This is like the faith aspect that comes into like our core value, walk by faith. People try to hide the human because they're afraid, oh, if they get attached to this person and then I have to replace this person, then it's going to have the adverse effect. And that is stinking thinking. The thing that you have to really evaluate is the chemical compound between people. And I know this sounds kind of weird, but we have 4 major chemicals that flood through our bodies, 2 of which I consider the vertical and 2 of which I consider the horizontal, 2 of which are quick hits, 2 of which are slow release. Dopamine and endorphins, the vertical. That's what you get when a new sale comes in. That's what you get when you do cocaine. That's what you get when you go to a rock show or a concert, or you go to like your company convention and they pump it full of stimulus. Serotonin and oxytocin are these horizontal, we're in this together, we're going to see this thing through, and it's a slow release, which you have to build up over time. And the only way to create those releases, which are really the trust drugs, the trust chemicals, is through spaced repetition. There's a consistency in how much you're interacting with that person, and it better not just be hunky-dory the whole time. Fortunately, Murphy's Law will take care of that for most of us. What can go wrong will go wrong. So the moment it goes wrong, it's not that it went sideways, it's that you were there for them. And it triggers, literally, and releases these chemicals that go, wait, are you my mother? And it's like,
which by the way is a really sad book.
It is a super sad
really book. Into it now.
Yeah.
And bro,
Super
I'm
sad.
like just weeping.
Where's this mom?
She's like,
Right.
what?
So imprinting is really, really important. And I have factored this into our client experience, where I want our clients to imprint with their people advisor, with their marketing advisor. And most people won't take this risk because they'll go, well, what if that person takes those 45 clients and creates their own? No, I want them to be able to do that, but they won't do it because they're served so well. You get what I'm saying? So there's this like faith component of like, let go and stop trying to control everything and let the aggregate of your culture, let the aggregate of your employee experience, like safeguard against all of that. So that's a lot of the secret sauce that's built into my core that people, there's biology, there's sociology, there's psychology, there's anthropology. There's some really smart shit that I've built into this.
Who would have thought we would have gotten a fucking science lesson?
But just meaning these are things that can be, they're not unique to my core. I mean, I've evoked them and hardwired them, but everything, this very conversation we're having right now as president and CEO on the Chairmen is part of that effect, because a marketing advisor takes a break from the grind of their day and listens to us give a shit.
Yeah.
And we can't like pretend like we care. We actually care.
Yeah.
And they go, I work at that company. Those are my guys.
Yeah.
Those are my people. Those are my leaders, right? And that's where the companies, I'm absolutely convinced, you've got me on my soapbox, that all the other companies that are chicken shit when it comes to their leadership, chicken shit when it comes to their values, chicken shit when it comes to their mission, are going to be snuffed out. They're going to be sniffed out, and they're going to be snuffed out. They're not going to exist by 2030, which is ironic because AI is going to keep surging, and humanity is where everybody's going to gravitate to. Because I don't know about you, but every transaction that comes into the company, a human being pulled the trigger.
Yeah. No, and I mean, that's real for everyone, right?
And then watch this. We just experienced it at lunch.
Yeah.
I'll be done.
Now
Two clients
step off. Like, stay.
Give me a megaphone. 2 clients came in while we were at lunch, right? Like the rallying and like war crying and like yes, like so many people cheer for that.
Yeah.
And you might be like, oh, well, yeah, because you got a sale. No, like sales happen all day at companies.
Yeah.
But like the fact that like Daryl did it and everyone's like, but we trained him and he's on the players. And then right immediately Samantha's going to be assigned to them. And then like every person that gets affected.
In my email that we've just set up their account, and it's just like bing, 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 bing. It's like all of these are people things that are happening. And sure, there's automation, but it's like Tony set up that automation.
Yep.
And like, and I even said at lunch, I was like, dude, I'll never get over a sale. It doesn't matter if it's 1,000
Yep.
sales a day that come in. Like, I will get the same excitement as my very first sale ever.
And that's culture, man. Because think about the restaurant that you walk into. It says on the website, it says on their door that they close at 10. It's 9:43. You're hungry. If the culture's right, everybody's pumped that you just walked in the door. I don't know that there's a restaurant on the planet that's like this, right? But there,
Actually, dude, a UPenn grad, Jesse Stein, made a post the other day on LinkedIn. So he runs a company called Hermetic.ai. They're an AI company. Mia is the one that does like the texting. Mia is an AI.
Nice.
Right? But he was talking about, and I'll probably butcher this story completely because that's what I do for a living. But basically, Mia had set up a huge gathering at this restaurant. It's like 4 hours. All the people were super upset, or all the people were super like tired. And then they're closing down, they lock the door, and this like woman with 3 kids comes, and he like ended up serving them. And the whole moral of the story was like everyone was exhausted at 10 p.m.
Yep.
But by 10:36, when that lady left, they were fired up.
Yes.
And they were excited. And it's just like, it is about the people.
Right.
Right. And I think that's something you've taught me about just business, in our relationship, is a lot of like, and sure, I've been people centric and I care about the people that have worked for me, always. Whatever, like, cool. But has been this idea that really, in order to scale, you need the people. And it's like being the world's most people centric company. That is employees, that is customers, that are people that are listening to our podcast. Yep. That's also people that will never, ever, ever enter into our ecosystem.
Yes.
Right? Because even those people, we actually like, it's not necessarily that we don't want them, but they don't align with the values and the mission, and also might just not have the problem. And that's perfect.
And every season has its reason. So like there are people that are not our clients today that I could get crusty about, because I go like, why did they stop paying, or why did they discontinue? And obviously I want to improve that and better that. We want to make sure our retention is at the highest.
Yeah.
But I also just have this attitude of gratitude that goes, oh, well, thanks for that revenue while it was here for 2 years, or while it was here for 6 months. So that there's this element of like really humanizing everything. And this isn't something that like we created. It's already there. It's just hidden in plain sight. And most leaders are not connecting it. And that's where I think as leaders, we have to tell the story. Like, in that instance with the LinkedIn post, it sort of naturally became altruistic because it was a mother and the kids, and like, who doesn't want to feed children, right?
Yeah.
But there are people that are grown adults that are hungry, you know what I mean? And are seeking and are coming to the door of our businesses and the door of our lives and going, I need something. You know, I'm longing for something. You and I were talking on the way back from lunch, and I felt as what I would call the Holy Spirit tell me to text James. And then he responded and said like, hey man, that was weird. I just was kind of thinking and whatever, like it was a divine appointment.
Yeah.
So this is something that all businesses, whether you're in HVAC, you're in advisory, you're a big company, you're a small company, you can make your rounds, take a beat and think about the who factor, the human factor. And then I would just tell people, immediately discard the thought that people don't scale. Bullshit. How do you think our country existed? They scaled an army.
Yeah.
Right? They didn't have tech. The militia is what made America America. It wasn't lining up soldiers in a field with cannons and muskets. It was the guerrilla warfare. It was the farmers and the blacksmiths and the townspeople that grabbed their hunting guns and said, dude, we could hide in the bushes and attack these officers and win our freedom. So it's like, we need to be more tactical and more people centric from a strategy standpoint, not just from like a virtuous standpoint.
One thing I don't want to overlook that you talked about is, I mean, it really is about like going back and getting back to the tactics of like for those big companies that are around right now. It's like when it was just you and a couple dudes hanging out, what did you guys go do? Right? You went out and talked to people.
Yep. Told the story.
You told the story. Like to get your $10 million investment, you had to talk to investors who are people. Some people might have different opinions on whether they're people or not. Right? They are people. And it's like, I think one of the biggest things that people start to mess up when they go, oh, we've got to scale, is you said it earlier that it's like people think that scaling is just money. But scale really is at this level, especially in 2025. And we were talking about this earlier, and we got some really good like shorts from this. So I'm excited for them to go live. But it's like the turnover cost.
Oh, yeah.
Is massive. And people right now are looking for organizations to become a part of that they can tie a mission to. I actually think, and it'll be interesting coming back 5, 10, 15, 20 years and listening to these, but I think we're going to go back to people that when they get to an organization, they're going to stay there for 30 years.
I agree.
I think like it's going to be because they've been tied to this mission and because it is centered around people and not a product or a process or a structure or systems, but it's centered around people, that we're going to start seeing these like AEs or these male clerks becoming CEOs. We're going to start seeing these AEs move into chief revenue officer positions at the same company, and they're not going to feel like they have to jump ship to go get that next opportunity, because people want a path. And if you provide people with a path, and here's the thing, your customers want a path.
Right.
And if you provide them with a path, or in, a MyCore case, a single point of contact that can walk them to that path. Because here's the thing with people, and you say this a lot, is like, oh, we had like the perfectly laid out plan and then people got involved, right? Because people are complex.
Right.
It's like people really aren't that complex, right? We are to an extent, but if you have someone that's either a step ahead of you or willing to walk with you on the path, what's interesting about people is they'll take the first step. Mm-hmm. And what happens is like, sure, step 100 is unclear. It's foggy up there. But if you take that first step, the second step becomes clear, and then the third step, and then the fourth step, and then the fifth step. And it's like that aha moment happens at every single step. Oh, this is why I'm here. Yep. Oh, this is why I'm here. This is why I bought this product. This is why I went to this company. And I think as we start to generate more of this thought process of lead with who, not lead with why or what or how, I think a lot of people listening to this episode right now, and I know just from the people that reach out to me on LinkedIn and through the newsletter, a lot of you are early stage founders. And I think that it will be very beneficial of every single one of you to listen to this episode multiple times and listen to what Nathan is saying, because there are too many companies that are now no longer a company because they scaled too fast. Now, scaling too fast is because they were focused on the dollars and not the efficiency.
Well, they're arbitrary. They're arbitrary targets.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they're self-imposed. Nobody put a gun to your head and said, you must take this check, mm-hmm. or you must build it this way. You took the bait, and I struggle feeling sorry for those people, because I feel that they maybe had a moment where they could have went, well, we didn't need that much money. It's sort of like when you watch Shark Tank, and when the good opportunities come up, they will say, I'll give you $500,000 for 20%. And then they kind of circle up and they come back and say, how about $250,000 for 5%? And they go, deal. That's wisdom. That person was smart and went, I don't want the pressure from that guy, the profit, or, from that chick, the QVC lady. I want like their alliance. I want their network. I want their backing, but I'm not going to take on all of that pressure that comes with it. So there's a prudence and a wisdom as a founder that you have to have in the way that you construct your business and build its trajectory and calibrate it. Something else that kind of came to mind, I know we're kind of rounding third base for today, but I said it earlier, like, don't buy into all of the conventional wisdom that you're hearing.
Yeah.
You have to be
So
able
good.
to block out that shit
So good.
and really latch onto and be non-negotiable with a few key things. And if those core beliefs aren't truly core and they're not something that you'd be willing to fight for, like I will fight you, then are they really that strong of a belief?
Yeah.
Do
If
you
you're not
really
willing to
have that
die,
much
you know.
conviction? Yeah, like you need to die on that
Like,
hill.
here's this thing: is how do you find those core beliefs? I think you're easily in my life the best person to ask this question, of just like, how do you actually figure that out? Because in a world of information, and you've said this on a podcast before, we're not in the world of information anymore. We're in the world of wisdom. And that's what people are looking for. But the problem is that 99.9% of people are still putting out bullshit information that's regurgitated. And so it's like, from the perspective of me, what I did is I deleted everything that would give me that kind of like conventional, here's how you should do it. I didn't want to be a part of any HVAC groups on Facebook or hear someone say, here's a good way to sell.
I can answer the question.
Yeah.
One, yes, like block out a lot of it, get out of the white noise. But even that doesn't matter if you don't test it. So you have to, I'm not talking like A/B testing. I mean like test the validity, the strength. So I'll put it this way. There's information and there's confirmation. And so many people are seeking information instead of confirmation. And I don't mean validation or affirmation like from a weak, insecure place. But if you think you're onto something, whether it's a belief system, a product, a value proposition, a partnership, go test it and create scenarios where you get confirmation. For many years, I looked at the training of the team less about trying to get them to sell and as much about whether the ideas were viable. It was like a free real-time opportunity to present the idea, to present the thesis. And then I gathered evidence that supported it, that went, oh, and I course corrected. It was like, oh, that didn't really resonate, or that didn't really take, or that message didn't really hit. So I think a lot of times people get on this loop where they think the more consumption of information is the trick, when it's like, dude, you probably already know. You just aren't validating it and confirming. You already know. Like, your parents taught you this. The church you went to taught you this. The freaking nursery rhymes in a lot of cases. I mean, this stuff is pretty simple. So that's where I don't look for information as much as I look for confirmation. And if I gather new information, I am looking for the confirmation before I will pay it much time. Like I better see 100 examples of where that is real before I am gonna add it to my, bag of wisdom.
Yeah. When I think that's where it comes to, if you are an early stage founder, it is so crucial for you to be out in the market.
Yeah, you got to be talking to people
and consistently throughout your business, right? I the second company I was with, I remember we launched this feedback solution, and it was very much like Uber, like put your 5 stars, it would ask you a couple of questions, and I remember us just like, our head of product came into the meeting and he was like, bro, just got out of the Uber. What if? And we were like, genius. Bro, so it was an add-on. So we built it, spent 6 months building it. It was an add-on. We did not go and collect enough confirmation from the marketplace. And it was like $199 a month extra to add this thing. And our whole pitch on it was, get ahead of bad reviews.
Right.
If it's 4 or 5 stars, we'll add it to your Google, your Facebook. Like, you got to add everything there. If it was 3 or more, we would ask them, you know, how can we do better next time? And like, obviously not send that to like Google. So it was like the whole premise of like, hey, you can increase your star rating without, you know, and also get the feedback that those Google reviews give you, right?
Interesting.
We went to market with it and it flopped.
It bombed.
And it was interesting because that was one of the first times in my career, because I remember just going out to market with this thing and just being like, dude, yes, this dude, we're going to go make every customer that we have is going to buy it. All these new customers are going to buy because of it.
Yep.
And we didn't actually go do that. And I think that was my big first learning of, bro, you better go get confirmation from the market or your team that the thing that you are trying to do is worth a damn.
You said something I wanna flesh out a little bit too. That it was really good. I was like, let's not lose that. I think there's two things happening in the market, and in like the world. You have millennials who are getting older. So we're like a little bit tired, right? So we don't want to keep changing companies,
Yeah.
right? It's just like, and look, if you're like 36 and you're still like just dating all kinds of different people, like settle down, dude.
grow up,
Like
bro.
grow up, like start to work on those other chemicals. Find those high trust, slow release chemicals that come from a long-term relationship. It's just like unhealthy. So I think what happened is you have this cohort of millennials that made up a majority of the workforce, and they were in their 20s, and their response and recovery time was really tight. Like they could jump from a company to a company just like they could jump from a girl or a guy to a girl to a guy and sort of just bury it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we're all kind of carrying around this like 10-pound bag, and eventually it has 15 pounds of shit in it, right? And then we're like, how much more can I stuff in this thing? So whether it's career or it's personal or it's spiritual, there is like a true limit to how much a person can handle before they get clunky, like emotionally and intellectually clunky. So you have the majority of people making up the workforce that are ready to settle down, so to speak, and create depth in their career.
Yeah.
You also have the market itself, so like the companies that are providing that space for them to go in depth are going to win, and they're going to win big. They're also creating these autonomous environments where if that person has a knack or like a flair or an appetite for something that's maybe outside of the normal like box of their career, you let them do that.
Because if you've gone deep, you can now go wider.
Right. And like you go, hey, it's cool. Like just get the work done. And if you want to like also consult a little bit on the side, like no problem.
Yeah.
So in other words, the companies that are trying to control less but empower more are going to retain that talent because they're creating a space for them to have some like other things that they have going on that they know aren't as viable as their career at this company.
Yeah. Well, and I would even
Does that make
say
sense?
that in this day and age, right? Like everyone talks about like side hustles and stuff like that,
right.
I think that there is going to be a world where these companies allow their internal employees to have side hustles within the business that are actually viable to the business, right? I remember early on in my career, right, I was kind of pretty strictly sales. And then we lost a marketer, and we just, you know, we were burning $1 million a month. Like, so it was like, hey, we're not backfilling that person. And so literally the CEO just came to me and was like, yo, you know anything about marketing? I'm like, not a thing, but I'll learn it.
Yep.
And then that I went from just being strictly sales to, hey, now I'm spending 30% of my time in marketing as well. And oh, by the way, being in sales helped me with the messaging and all of that when it came to our marketing. And I think there's going to be a place in the world where if you've built enough depth and you have really created that root system, you're going to be able to say to that individual who's like, man, I'm not necessarily feeling as fulfilled as I was 2 years ago.
Yep.
I'm doing a lot because sure, like attention spans have decreased. face. Let's just not
Oh, yeah.
like, TikTok is real. Right. And so it's like, if they're sitting there going like, you know what, I really don't want to continue up this vertical of SDR to AE to senior AE to manager to director to VP to CRO. Cool. I think there is a place where a lot of these organizations, if they truly are becoming people centric and they are understanding what the cost of turnover is and the cost of losing high caliber individuals, they'll even start to say like, hey, okay, cool. What do you like to do? Oh, I love to like, cool.
Yeah, man.
Graphic design is a thing.
There has to be, I love that. There has to be a bit of a playground, a sandbox within your organization. It's sort of like the tech companies that say, oh, here's a demo where you can just go in and play around and, it's all fake data, there's no harm in it. It's almost like we have to create that internally for the farm team. If you are creating enough opportunities for people to dabble or check in on their passions, the constant should be that they want to work at, with, and for your company in some capacity, and then allow them the autonomy to explore that. Now they should prove themselves naturally. You don't want it to be a free for all. But I agree with you. I think that companies are going to create these worlds, and this is sort of like how we've done it too. Like we have our academy where you kind of don't ever have to leave MyCore. Like it's almost like an all-inclusive resort or something. like you're like, even if you're like, that role isn't for me, or that is no longer like a priority of mine, there's all these ways to still like stay around it. Mm-hmm. And I'd love everyone to be like hardcore all the time naturally, but I think companies have such a binary way for people to engage in their company that it's either like you're in or you're out, you're employed or you're not, you're a customer or you aren't. And I think one of the strengths that we've found, and I think other companies can do this, is to create communities that people can like gateway drug themselves into your brand. They can get like a taste and go, oh, and there is still a way to keep potency without it being like, are you ready to sign your life away? Or are you all in?
Yeah.
And
when I think a lot of companies are doing that, right? Like there are a lot of companies that are community focused. They're building out that. But I think what it comes down to is, again, even with communities, community is people driven, right? Mm-hmm. They're drawing people, and these are people that may never actually be W-2 employees for your company. But I mean, one thing you see constantly are these, they call it influencer marketing, right? But it's like these individuals that have used your product, and sure, in some cases you have to pay them to say that, right? But they've used your product and they're now going to go to the world and be your best salesperson because they've got a following. They've used your product. They say it's great. Whether someone calls bullshit on it or not, they're still talking about you. They're clicking on your link. They're going to that thing. I think my buddy Dale Dupree does this really well in his Sales Rebellion Slack channel. I think there's like 1,000 people in it, something like that. It's some wild number. And none of those, I mean, maybe 4 or 5 of them work for the Sales Rebellion, but he's created, products that you can buy. He's created training that you can get from him. He's also doing this. I don't know if this is public, so I apologize, Dale, if it's not. It's public on the Slack channel, so I'm going to say it now. Where he has an offer that they will come in and you do the tactics for you. So it's like a mercenary sales team that will literally go out to market and sell for you. And it's like he's done all of this through the community, and he's got, hundreds of thousands of followers, across all his platforms and things like that. So it's like, I think just as we're looking at scale, like scale is different. Like it's not just, I went from 1 to 10, 10 to 100. I went from, I'll just use Dale. Dale went from a LinkedIn following of 50,000 to starting the Sales Rebellion to coaching copier companies on how to sell and make the salespeople make $1 million a year like he did selling copiers. Like what? now it went to other industries. And then it went to the people, him doing the training and them going, well, hold up, you used a brick that was wrapped in a piece of paper and then you crumpled up a piece of paper and put it in a mini trash. Can you guys just build that for us? Right. Yeah, sure, for a price. And then it's gotten all the way to this point where now he's like, well, pay me. I don't even know what it is. I'm going to text him actually right after this. I want to know how much it is. But it's like, you'll pay me and I'll do the crumpled letter. I'll do the coffee stained letter. I'll do the letter across the world. I'll do the empty donut box. I'll do the life size cardboard cutout of one of your AEs. And I'll send it to that CEO that you want a meeting with. Like, now it's like, all of that is all community. It's all on Slack. Yep. And I mean, dude, you want to talk about a community of just straight rebels. And obviously it's called the Sales Rebellion, right? But it's like, these are individuals. And it all started with one guy who started posting on LinkedIn and has now created just an absolute cohort of badass human beings that are going into their market and doing those things. And now purchasing products and hiring him not only to coach and consult and do, but to actually embed his process in that. That is called scale.
It's I love how you kind of ended on that punctuation, because as you were sharing, and then I was reflecting on the last 90 minutes, I went, every time we've said the word scale, we could and probably even should be using the word growth.
Yeah.
That's what scale needs to be updated with. We've gotten into this loop where there's these ungodly growth curves, these ungodly rates of scale. And looking at it through growth, it's so much more mature, because you understand that you plant the seed, you cultivate, and then you harvest.
Yeah.
You can't just plant the seed and then harvest. That there's a natural process to the universe that if you mess that thing up and you act like you're God, or you try to pour, stimulus on it, it'll work for a while.
Yeah.
But the embers won't burn very long, because you're just pouring gasoline on the, flame. So I love that Dale recognizes the real need that he's meeting there, because it's a human need. It's a need to be part of a community. It's a need to be part of a group. It's the need to be seen and heard and respected and loved. And that's something that, being people centric, I champion for.
And
I
it's
think
exactly what he talks about, right? Like, we should get Dale on the MyCore podcast.
Yeah, heck yeah.
I think he's in Florida in June. So we need to just get him on this couch. But because, dude, he's got
to be on this one either.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I don't care what he's on, but he's got a story and a half. Okay. So I think you guys would crush on that. But I think the interesting part, and I've got a meeting in 12 minutes with Ken and Patty. But what I just want to exclamation point onto what you talked about with growth is, what's interesting when you think about how a crop grows, right? You plant the seed, you water it, it needs sunshine. But what's really interesting about it is you can plant the right seed with the right amount of water and the right amount of sunshine. It can be planted in the wrong soil, the wrong type of soil, the wrong pH. Right. That pH water was delicious. But it's all about the soil that it is rooted in. The environment that it's surrounded in. And the thing that's so important when you're looking at scaling an organization is going back to what you said, where it is all about the people. It's all about the environment that you put those people in. And it's why MyCore has been as successful as you all been, is because, and I use you all because I had nothing to do with the soil that you have cultivated, right? You've cultivated the soil that not only provides growth for the customer in whatever need that they have, but growth for every single individual that works, and they're able to take that next step in their career and they're able to have, you know, the certainty, Ned, the uncertainty, Nathan,
Right.
and got it.
The predictable,
Yeah, predictable and
the
unpredictable.
Fair.
But
Touche.
like, if we look at any company that has been around for a long time,
right,
it's the soil.
Yeah, that's good.
And it's like, you can plant the right person, right? It's the age old right person, right bus, or right seat in the right bus.
Yep.
It's like, you can put that right person in the wrong environment and they're going to mess up.
Right.
You can put the right product in the right company, but if you haven't cultivated that foundation and that soil and that core understanding of, this is the hill that we're going to die on as an organization, our differentiator, sure, you're going to scale, but you're not going to grow and elongate that scale.
Yep.
And that's where it's like, you know, I look at Dale, 2018, he gets his first client, right? He leaves his copier company, gets his very first client. 2025, hundreds of clients, thousands of followers and people and rebels. And now he's got this thing where he's able to go into these organizations and be the sales team, right? It's just like, you don't grow that unless you are cultivating the depth of the root system, and then that root system is growing in the right soil. So
I love how you said, good enough said, man. The longevity part is so important, because if you're thinking in terms of wanting this to last a while, like most of your life, beyond your life, then you have no choice but to build that depth.
Yeah.
You would have to really like be short-sighted. You would really have to like bury your head and not look over the horizon, and not think about the people around you, and not think about your children, and not think about the next generation. So you almost have no choice. Like, if you're aware, if you're just like paying attention, you'll approach your business like you would your family. You want it to sustain, you want it to grow, you want it to develop, and you want it to mature. And how do you do that? You listen to the Chairman podcast
every day. You listen to it 16 times a day. Dude, you listen.
Dude. Good stuff today. I love having these conversations. They always go on these twists and turns. I learned a lot from you today, as I always do, and iron sharpens iron, man.
Let's go.
Good stuff.
Scale is a scam.
Peace.
Growth is God.